So, what will happen next? Well, we could double down on the clean house idea, and we could insist of ourselves. We could allow that judging part of us, we could allow that part of us who has judged our own failure to take control and become stronger, and we could allow that judging part of us to force the clean home. Yes? We could insist on cleanliness. And now that we've already written the book and we have followers and there's others out there, we're invested in this, right? Because now we know that no one can see our dirty home, right? So then we allow that part of us who has judged very harshly to take control. And we insist, because now we have friends who we've established this the standard of righteousness, right? And now we have community. There's all these people, they've read our books, their homes are clean, and it would be too much of a loss for us to abandon this idea that it is the clean home that establishes our righteousness, right? Because maybe we're making a living off of these books and this idea, who knows? So that's one path to take. Another path goes like this. We acknowledge that the clean home was merely a form, right? It was a waypoint in our journey. It was a part of our conscious awakening. But now we understand that we need something deeper than a clean home. We need to find another practice, perhaps. A deeper practice. So what we could do, if we're willing to bring our awareness deeper, to begin observing that part of ourselves who is judging and that part of ourselves who is failing, if we can understand that we are not those parts of our being, that we are something deeper, that we are the presence or the love or the deeper consciousness that observes those judging and failing parts of our being, then something else may happen. There may be a creativity that comes upon us, and we may find another practice. The Christ story is in this story. The Christ was born into a practice that was of external observations, right? External observances. If you do this, and if you do this, and if you do this, you are well. And as long as you don't do this, and don't do this, and don't do that, then you are well. But the Christ came and said, no, it's much deeper than having a clean home, right? This is about an internal experience. This is about how we treat ourselves. If you love your neighbor as you love yourself, and love God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, then you're well. But what is it like to love your neighbor as yourself? Maybe we discover that we truly do not even understand what it means to love ourselves. And if we truly don't understand quite yet how to love ourselves, then how could we possibly love our neighbor? And if we don't know how to love ourselves or our neighbor, what does it truly mean to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength? Do you see? If we've been judging ourselves by a false standard of success for all of our lives, then there's going to have to be some kind of reordering. And we think that the Christ story is one that we've already processed, that we've already understood, that we've already accepted. All the churches, all the preachers, and all the stories. But in some sense, we really have yet to truly take this whole concept in, this whole idea. See, the Christ showed us how to move through form, right? How to move through a practice, how to be born into a practice, to take that practice to its limits, and then to find another practice, or to trade the practice of the external observance for the practice of the kingdom of heaven is within, finding out what it means to love oneself, what it means to love one's neighbor, and what it means to truly love God, to have this internal experience of love and joy. The Christ showed us how to move through form with forgiveness. A lot of times what we do is, back to our story of the clean home, is that once we discover that the clean home is not really what it's all about, then we'll allow another judging part of us to come into existence. And it's the part that judges the whole experience of the clean home. We're like, oh, I thought it was the clean home, but it's not about the clean home at all. How could I have been so stupid? I'm such an idiot. I'll never do that again. And we judge ourselves on another level. We judge the one who failed. We judge that part of our ego that failed, that part of our false self that failed, and we judge the one that judged. And now we're embodying another part of the ego, which is this unforgiveness for the whole situation. But the Christ showed us how to move through these forms that we discover with forgiveness, understanding that it's about the movement through the form. Right? That this is okay, that there is a spiraling upwards, that there is a leaving behind of form. Right? And so, that's why Christ had that conversation with Peter where he was like, hey, you're not going to understand where I'm going tonight, but before the rooster crows, you will have betrayed me 3 times. And the reason why the Christ knew that is because the Christ knew that Peter was in love with the form that the Christ was taking in that particular moment. And the Christ knew that Peter would take up his sword and lop off the ear, and the Christ knew, that he would have to put the ear back on, and that he would willingly go to his own death. And what is that death? But the death of the Christ on the cross is the death of our false self. It is the death of those parts of us who judge, right? It is the death of the parts of us that establish false senses of righteousness, yes. The death of those parts of us that establish false sense of success, and the death of the parts of us that would judge he who failed and he who judges what success and failure is. See, our egos can split off into diverse and many expressions. Our false self, our flesh, the devil in us. We become tormented when we are split in many fragments, and those fragments begin warring against themselves, yes? Have you ever experienced that? I certainly have. It's all just a metaphor. It's a story. It's a poem for us to begin to understand what it's like to have a practice. what it's like to wake up in the early hours of the morning and make peace with ourselves. What is the internal experience like? If it is true that the kingdom of heaven is within, when we turn inward, when we begin experiencing or observing this inward life, what's that like for us? Are we able to spend time with ourselves? Are we able to love ourselves? And are we able to pass that love along to our brothers and sisters